going to drive that pilot bearing out so that I can drop this in the parts cleaner, get it degreased. I found one of my dad's old 7/8 inch sockets that kind of fits in there. Fits in there better than my newer one. So we're going to tilt this up and see if we can hammer that out. Okay, as you can see, we were successful. And the part number on this is an MRC found it there a minute ago. "103 KSZ" is what it says. 103 KSZ. And it is not, I don't know if I cleaned it up, if it would be better. Yeah, the more I move it, the better it is, but as long as I got it out, if I can find one, I'll replace it. Again, it's one of those open bearing types, so at least we got that done. I'll go drop that in the parts bath. Okay, on the front cover, I got to remove this plate. There's a roller bearing in there, so I got to remove that plate so I can get the roller bearing out, clean everything up, and paint it or powder coat it. So we're do that real quick and see what happens. I am doing a visual inspection on the block to see if I can just hone it and re-ring it. You can kind of see there's a few scores in them. That's piston number 1, piston number 2, piston number 3, and piston number 4. They're not deep enough to catch my fingernail. I did take a piston out, clean it up. You know, they got the usual scoring. I don't think that must have came from me laying it on the block, on a box or something. Anyway, they got the usual scoring on the thrust sides, but otherwise they're pretty good. And I don't know if it will focus on that. It is, you can see the 060. So they're as far out as we can go with it without re-sleeving. But again, I want to avoid that if I can. So, set my bore gauge up. And I'm not going to go through on how you do that because there's a lot of better videos out there on YouTube that go over that. But where I'm at is my top on the thrust side is 2.9345 all the way down. On the other side, it's 2.9341, 2.9340, and 2.9340. And according to the Continental engine manual for the Y91, should be 2.875 for standard bore, and if I add 60 to it, that takes me up to 2.935. So anyway, I'll go ahead and go through and recheck the rest of these, and then take a little bit of a look at it and see if I can't figure out if the taper's okay and that kind of stuff. Doing a visual inspection of the crankshaft. You can see there's no real scores. Everything looks smooth. it actually looks pretty good. So I'm going to have to go through each rod, piston, and then the bearings and do a diameter check on that, make sure that's okay, but surprisingly so far so good. Looks like there's one little slight pit there, but that don't look too bad. Okay, as long as I'm reading this, this is the top part of the bearing from the first cylinder rod. If I'm reading it correctly, which I think I am, I'm at 6.183, and according to our scale here, our max on the Y91 is 0.618, or normal is 0.6184. The wear limit is 0.0609. So that we're probably good there. All right, I removed the valve guides with these. Some of them came out okay. Let me see. See, that came out full. However, most of them came out like that. Which worries me when I go to put them back in. Put new ones back in. So I have to research that a little bit. Alright, we used our handy dandy cam bearing driver. Pulled out all the cam bearings. So this block appears to be ready for hot tanking. There's the large bearing. Middle bearing. And the rear bearing. So as soon as I had a little bit of change of plan on this. I was originally going to take it to the machine shop, have them do most of that. But I'm going to go ahead and finish up a hot tank that I was building, or Brad and I were building years ago. And we're going to hot tank it ourselves. So hopefully the next thing you see is us dropping it in the hot tank. Okay, ladies and gents, I got ahead of myself and didn't film some of this, so now I'm going to circle back and try to catch you guys up. Basically what I decided to do is instead of taking it into the machine shop and having them hot tank it, we finished up a hot tank that we started a few years back. Originally what we did is we had two block heaters that we put in the bottom of a tank. Then we had a thermostat from a hot water heater, and we were going to use that. Ran into two problems. Number one, there wasn't enough wattage on those two tank heaters to heat the stuff up warm enough. The second thing is since they were in the bottom of the tank, all the gunk fell down in there and they quickly burned up. So we kind of set it aside. I wasted 2 weeks And that's because most of the time I get most of my work done on the weekends. Sometimes I can get out here and get at night and get some work done. But anyway, I wasted 2 weeks trying to cut the holes out to put the tank heaters in and try to weld them up. I can weld 18 gauge metal fairly well now, but I have not mastered the art of making them leak proof. Because what we did is, instead of using block heaters, that down there is a 2,000 watt hot water heater element. And what I ended up doing, and you can find lots of videos on this on YouTube, I ordered that bung there that you can screw a 1-inch hot water heater element in. So rather than trying to weld something on there to screw that in, that worked out perfect. Then I had some old copper sitting around, and this stuff's nasty right now, but I had some old copper sitting down. I made an aerator using the old 1/2-inch copper tubing. That goes down the side, and then it goes out in the middle of it, and then I have a key on there. So I took a 64th inch or 65th inch drill bit and drilled some holes. I've got it hooked up to air compressor, and I've got it down as low pressure as low as I can go to provide aeration. In the bottom of that, there's a heavy screen with some legs on it that comes up a couple inches above the heating element. And it worked really well. You can see I'm in the process right now of doing my final cleaning up on this, so I can take it in and have the block and the head over in here milled. I still need to take these studs out here before I take it in and clean this up. You can see I got a little carbon left here. I'm going to try to get out, and then of course there's rust in here. Or clean that up with these little beauties before I take it in. I think I'm going to go ahead and take the ridge off, ream the ridge off, and hone these before I take it in. And then I'm going to have them drive in the valve guides for me, because when I took them out, I broke about every one of them, and I don't know if I just don't have the right tool or whatever. Now, having said all of this with the hot tank, and the other thing that I did find out is I've complained about that yellow paint, getting that off, having to use paint stripper on it. I have found out that if I hot tank that stuff for overnight, I can power wash that yellow paint off with no effort. This one I got the paint completely off. That one there's still a little bit on there, but I got enough of it off. I can media blast that. So the other thing, before I forget, right here is the housing for the vaporizer. Here's the vaporizer. I'm going to have to get a new one. Luckily, they are still available. This sits down in here. This mounts to the engine block, and the antifreeze goes through here. I tell you that because the biggest problem I had with this block, let me see here. There's a drain port. The engine's upside down right now. There's a drain port here that this little baby mounts to. You can see I poked the hole back through there, but that had, by the way, there's the engine block heater that I took out of that. That had, anyway, it had an elbow that came out of that went to a petcock. But that elbow had just less than a thumb, I don't know, it barely had an opening on it. And so what happened, and when I look in the manual, this just has a plug in it. And it's for draining the block, antifreeze. This, clear down into here, was solid rust. And I could not, I mean, I spent probably over an hour after hot tanking it, just, you know, shoving a screwdriver down there, opening that all up, getting all that rust out, and then power washing it. And I think I've finally got it cleaned up enough, or as well as it's going to get. I tell you that because if you remember back in the original, I believe in some of the original videos, my problem with this is I rebuilt the carb on it. It has kind of a carb. I rebuilt the carb on it. I could get it to start after messing around with the carb for a little while. But if I ran it for 10, 15, 20 minutes, shut it off, it would not start again. I'd have to let it cool down, then I'd have to fool around with the adjustments on the carb to get it running again. Same thing over and over. So I'm thinking that vaporizer, between the rust in here, the vaporizer and everything, that might have been my starting issue. I'm hoping. Now, after we hot tank these, then what I did is I've got this tub of Rust 911. Filled this up. This is a concentrate. Filled it up with water. Let the block soak for a couple days. Let the head soak for a couple days, and removed all the rust. And you can see this is clear when you first put it in. It's black now. It's probably done. We might drop a couple other things in it just to see if it does any good. But between that, the hot tanking, and power washing, you know, with our power washer over here, we got 98% of the rust off. I have got to, and carbon. This pretty much is rust free. I've got a little bit of carbon in the heads I got to clean out. Like I said, you can see there's some rust in here. It turns that rust black, that Rust 911. Right now I've got this flipped over here. I'm just going to clean off the gasket surface, flip it back over. I've got a little bit of rust that I want to take out on the top, and then hopefully Monday this goes to the machine shop. Anyway, that picks you up to where I'm at. I've got some, like I said, I've got some stuff in the old hot tank here. And I hear I've got a, there, a little bit of air leak. Nope, there it goes again. Not bad. But anyway, we'll get the rest of what I can hot tanked in here, get all that yellow off so I can get it painted before it gets too cold to paint out here. And, you know, the other thing I'm working on right now is I did find on eBay, of all places, where is it at? A rebuild kit for the water pump for $90. Of course, I went to take these screws out, take this back plate out, and these stripped out. So I'm probably going to weld a couple nuts on those and use that to take it out. And then we'll media blast that and probably powder coat it and put it back together when we get the rebuild kit. So not quite done with this series of videos, but I thought I'd bring you up to date from the last time I talked to you. Well, now I did it. I was cleaning up the head, getting it ready to take in to get it milled, and I broke off a stud in there, which I've removed well in excess of 20 some studs with that little tool I've used, and that's the only one I broke. Now the other thing is you can see, I don't know if I did it when I was removing the stud over here or if it was there, but you can see there's a slight, there it is, slight crack going horizontal there, which I'm going to have to deal with. It's not very big, so I think I can MIG weld that. So we'll do that next. But overall, as far as the head's concerned, I did a pretty good, or I was able to get the all the carbon removed from it after soaking it. So as long as I can fix those two things, I'll be okay. Well, there's what it looks like after getting honed. Oops. Not real sure what I think about that. After I got done, I cleaned it with brake fluid and then I sprayed it with WD-40 so it wouldn't flash rust. So I don't know, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Good morning, everyone. It's a nice balmy 50-degree day in the middle of October in the middle of Nebraska. Actually, yesterday it got up to 84 degrees. I'm out in the building out here, and it's a concrete building, so it retains some of the heat for a while. So it's actually pretty nice in the shop out here. Now, for an update, you notice no engine. Here's where we're at. I took the engine block and the head into the machine shop. I needed them to mill the head, and I decided to have them put in the valve guides because when I took them out, I think I mentioned on one of the other videos, when I drove them out using the tools I got, I pretty much broke every one of them. Well, I didn't want to break 8 valve guides putting them back in, so I decided to go ahead and have them put it in. Then the other thing I did is I broke one of the studs off in the head that held the vaporizer thermostat housing on. And so I tried to weld a nut to it and crank it off, and I couldn't get it was broke down too far. I couldn't get a good weld on the stud. So then I tried drilling it out to put a easy out on it, and ended up drilling it off center. Luckily, I didn't break the easy out off in it. So I had them go ahead and drill that out and put a Healy coil or whatever brand they used on it. In the meantime, the machinist I was using this time, he builds, engines for Cobras and stuff like that, and he looked down the cylinders and said, gee, I see a lot of shadows in there. We really need to sleeve this. And I told him I didn't want to spend that kind of money on it, but he put the shadow of the doubt in my head. So I called him back and said, well, let me see if can you get the sleeves? Let me see if I can, do that. And he could get the sleeves, but he couldn't get the pistons or the rings because, of course, we'd have to, put new pistons in. I spent a day calling around trying to find standard or even 20 or 30 over pistons for it and could not find them. I'm assuming Monty or not, I don't remember what his name is, but I'm assuming that he might have had them, but they're closed down till the end of October for Monty's equipment. And so I decided to we just decided to go ahead and put the 60 overs back in it and hope, cross our fingers and hope for the best. So that was quite the odyssey. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this episode here. And then the next episode, as we're waiting for the block and head to get back, I'm going to start doing, I've got the water pump and front engine cover and all that kind of good stuff, the hydraulic pump that I need to rebuild. I'm going to go ahead and get that done, and starting in the next episode, and then when we get the block back, we can start putting things together. So thanks for watching, click the subscribe and the notify button and all that kind of good jazz so we can keep doing this.